I should have got the HD version. Great. Okay, that's quite enough weirdness for this morning, for certainly the start. I feel the atmosphere is well set. So I've got a latecomer. That's right, absolutely fine. We're doing a little bit of team stuff, so if you wouldn't mind sitting down here, you're more than welcome to sit with your colleague there, but I think this chat would, would get more out of it, I think. That'd be amazing, thank you very much. Cheers. Taste a bit of feedback. I think I'll wind down my volume. No, not doing any good. Okay, never mind. Okay, morning. Hello. Welcome to the first post-keynote session of the day. This is one of the Bono sessions, so it's going to go through all the way through till lunch. If we get tired or you get tired of me, feel free to pop out and grab some coffee about halfway through. We'll take a vote about that time, I think, if we're not too involved. But anyway, without further ado, I'll launch in. Just see how my time's doing. Yeah, great. Okay, so it's 10:36. Right. So, come on. Thank you. Right. So, if anyone knows me, I'm fairly a keen tweeter, but it'd be great to turn your phones to silence unless we have a zombie apocalypse or a monkey attack or something. Great. Okay. Quick agenda or kind of précis of what we're going to talk about together, because this is a kind of interactive session. I'll do a bit of talking, but I'll definitely get you trying some stuff out. So what I want to talk about is what are and how to use a persona survive in the real world, or not in this case. A field guide to recognising those ghost personas, and learn to identify some kind of persona sicknesses and potential manifestations of persona weirdness. And and then there's don't call an exorcist. We're going to nurture them back to life if you have the same problem at the moment. Okay, so who have we got here at the moment? Right, I'm a UX person. Do we have any mostly developers here, or any QAs, testers, project PMs, product or project managers? Couple, great. 3, 4, 5. I know there's at least one other UX person in the room, which is cool. Hello, yay. Oh, three there, brilliant. 4, 5, awesome. Oh, product, excellent. Oh, good. I'm glad we've got a BA. Good. Are we all from the local area, or from out of town, or anyone from out of town? Like traveled a long way across the ocean. Awesome. Where are you from? Ohio. Excellent. Wow. I haven't been to Ohio. I can't wait for an Agile conference to go there, so I can get in on the act. Yeah. Get my company to sponsor it or something. It's what?
It's an exciting place.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, maybe I'll stick to Agile New York or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could get up to mischief there. Okay, so who am I? And what do I have to do to be talking up here? So I work for a company called Unruly, which they adorably named unruly.co when one of the latest top-level domains came out. I'm the only UX person in the building, so that makes me a team of one and a kind of a UX coach. It's an approach I've been developing, but it also means I'm the UX researcher, the interaction designer, the UI engineer, UI designer, test participant recruiter, usability tester. You get the general idea. It's a fun and varied role, but I'm currently trying to get upskill the whole company. So they're doing stuff. Developers are testing their own work, that kind of thing, which is great fun. And I've been doing that for lots of years, perhaps even almost pre the coining of the term user experience. I've done it for big companies, really small companies before they got big. So a little bit of perspective, and seen a fair bit of problems that can happen. Okay. Unruly are a company that do anything to do with technology, social media, and video, essentially. You name it, and we've pretty much done it. We were recently acquired by a very big publisher, so now we're adapting slowly to the world of being a publisher and helping publishers. We're not just internal to that big organisation. We're looking to help keep companies like a really good, worthy companies like perhaps the Times or the Guardian and afloat with their keeping their revenues going, so they can continue the kind of quality reporting and content that we like to see and read. So we also go right back to the source and help video makers make better content that's more specific to their audience. So this is quite nice segue for me. We were constantly getting these guys to kind of understand their audiences more, which is quite interesting. And it's win-win. So because if I see an advert about cameras, I'm all over it. I'm if you know me, I'm slightly obsessed. So it's that's not an advert to me. That's a nudge, a helpful nudge, and that's the kind of scrupulous approach I really tries to take. The clues in the name with us guys. The theory being, if we take a slightly anarchic, unusual, humorous, perhaps even approach to things, it takes the seriousness out of it. Allows a bit more play and hopefully innovation at the end. Hopefully our revenues and how people see us is they can judge that. I make no apologies for the rest of the presentation, by the way, because our culture is thoroughly soaked in 8-bit characters, more cats, memes, you name it. So I'm afraid that's good. That's just a given. So you be warned. Okay, so. Already, I want to leap in and see where we all are on the kind of the what personas are and where we're at. So, for 5 minutes, I want you to, by your tables, just kind of write down what you think personas are. I know that's going to be easy for some of us, but it's actually surprisingly varied when you think about it. Did you see Adrian's session yesterday?
I didn't.
No, I wish I had. Yeah, I was still travelling then.
Yeah, I forgot that we had to get out earlier than I did to get
Yeah.
overlaps with what you're doing.
Yeah, compliments. I hope. Yeah. He sort of taught, presented to people about the good, the bad, and the good, but there was no practical side. So hopefully we can kind of take that on board and do it in a slightly a memorable way for things to look out for. Certainly, there's always an underlying current, I think, in what I do, because I'm constantly trying to explain this stuff to help tell stories about UX techniques and reasoning to technical people, essentially, quite a lot of the time. So I guess you could, if you don't learn anything today, it might be certainly perhaps the underlying technique of how to set, like promote or present techniques. Yeah, I think we're always. I felt your. I thought it was very on point your talk yesterday about. Like I was sort of saying earlier, I think if you're an agency, you've got a lot of overheads, and you need to run. But sometimes projects don't have that luxury, and trying to do things on a bit more affordably is the answer. And there are some ways, if you're in house, you don't have to worry about having a building to kind of pay rent on or things like that. Right, I think they're running out of time now. Okay, that's probably about 5 minutes, roughly speaking. So if we just have a quick kind of whip around and see what each of the teams has done, guys. So what do you think? What do you think personas are?
We wrote down. They sort of describe a typical type of user, like specifically as user, like user, what we're doing. They used to sort of guide business development, design decisions. They're not made up; they're based on actual data from real users actually interviewed, and depending on sort of the level of external need, it might just be certain parts of the data we want to might not be, a full story about their life, but just to sort of keep relevant keywords. Candid.
Cool. Guys, how did you? What did you conclude?
They were a tool for focusing on, say, real users, but not really real users, obviously, but to avoid development assumptions about because developers are thinking more about the action.
Yeah, that's an interesting point around the customers of personas are who you're communicating to. Is quite often the design or development team. Absolutely. Guys, how did you do? What did you
I think we've done different things, but I think they're all quite similar. So we've got a presentation of profiles, identifying a target audience, person, customer. I use the word segment, which is a bit difficult, I think. And they're helping. So I said they're helping you remember that group's goals and motivations and tasks. And then I put capital letters there based on research and not made up.
The music's my ears. Excellent. Okay, last two. Guys, how did you? What did you come up with?
So we said that then within is a group of people, kind of group of representative
Not just one.
group of users,
Mhm.
the characteristics are based on research, either qualitative or quantitative
Mhm.
research. So
Yeah.
we understand the characteristics and then we interact with them because it's not one person. You represent a group of people.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, how did you do? What did you come up with?
We had the human embodiment of a market segment, which we had a way to understand complex behaviours, typical customer, target customer, one aspect of a person, and just based on what other speakers have said in the yesterday,
Oh, yeah.
not age, gender, location, and I think maybe ethnicity was on there as well, because people make assumptions about things, however those affect behaviours and the ability to buy stuff. So I guess that would be adding things that you don't want.
So I really one thing haven't heard for a while is a way to understand complex behaviours. I really like that. That's we'll come on to that in a minute. That's cool. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so all right. So there's in case you haven't noticed, a slight ghostly theme about the presentation. So I thought I'd better segue a little bit into that area. I hate this film. It's horrible. I'm actually kind of getting shivers down my spine right now. It's in a bad way. It's called the Ringu, or in Japanese. I think they remade it in Hollywood. I refuse to watch that one. I'm not sure if it's good or not. But it's every time I see someone with long hair, like looking down at their phone, spirits, souls, shadows, or wraiths. I didn't realise wraith is a Scottish word. I was looking up the etymology of ghost subject matter. Interesting. Anyway, I quite like the verb to glide smoothly and effortlessly, which I might try and bring back. I'm going to ghost around the place. I think it's quite nice. But anyway, whoops, come on, back a bit. Thank you. So they've been around since sort of pre-literate cultures. I mean, these are ghosts, and the concept of spirits of the living are kind of laid to rest in our most early rites in human civilization, like funeral rites, practice of spiritualism and ritual magic. Really, this is kind of an ongoing thing, you might say. But generally described as solitary human-like essences that haunt and appear at various different times, but not always there. So I had a go at trying to classify them. And so I got to a few blocks here. So we've got unquiet spirits, seems like a fairly safe classification. So that's grumpy ex-people who don't like change. That's what... I don't know anyone like that, but they're often location orientated. They don't like leaving the their cave or something. Poltergeists who like moving stuff around. That seems to be their major kind of characteristic. So like they haven't been to feng shui lessons. They like messing the room up and making it generally wrong. Also, there are sort of possession-y kind of ghosts who take people over, or cars, or whatever, and object-orientated ghosts. I couldn't leave this one alone. It was just asking for it. So that's oogs. And you have to have the S there, just for the mystery. The S and the H on the end. And there seems to be obsessively attached to objects, like videos in the case of Ringu, books, musical instruments, that kind of thing. And cursed peoples, because they've done something wrong, or they're pissed off about something generally, or whatever. But ask this chap, he knows all about it, or just watch the Lord of the Rings. That's a good intro to that kind of thing. There are also these, and I do this research, so you don't have to. That's slightly blurred because that's what it feels like after one. I dread to think what it'd be like after a few. That's a prohibition cocktail made with gin, chartreuse, and lime juice. And I think it's called a green ghost because it glows not necessarily in the dark, but I think nowadays you'd probably call it more radioactive than anything else. But there are some ones with coconut and cream in, but they just seemed a bit too, they're kind of labouring the theme a bit. I quite like this one. And also I like gin. So I thought that would wake you up, in case you're falling asleep. So they're mostly these, though, these kind of horrific things that generally seem quite grumpy. All right, so the thing I like, or one of the characters of ghosts, is their intangibility. You might not know that you have that problem. It might be that you've got an overwhelming feeling of uncertainty about your product and the people who are using it, or a lack of trust in your design in the wider sense, and the decisions you're making, and more specifically, about your software and the personas. So that might be a sign that you've got ghostly personas right now. So do you have? Let's find out if anyone here might have a persona manifestation. So raise your hands if you have no explicit personas on your project for whatever reason or product. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Are you 3 separate projects, or are you guys? You're separate, yeah. So there's at least 3 here who may have a ghost persona problem, because if you don't have personas, invariably people make them up in their heads and have a position on what they are. You never get that feeling in meetings where people say, "Oh, if I was doing this, then I would." You know, that classic point. Whereas generally, if you have personas, at least you can say, "Well, Bob wouldn't do this." You know, it gets a little bit less impersonal, a bit more impersonal, I mean. So raise your hands if you've spoken to your personas in the last month. And I don't mean just walked up to the wall, but actually, you know, perhaps used them or spoken about them.
If you have or haven't?
If you have, yes. If you have spoken to them. You have spoken to them last month.
Sorry, I'm probably misunderstanding. If we have spoken about our persona?
Yeah, in a project or a meeting, or in a product meeting or whatever, yeah. Cool, so a few people, great. Okay, cool. Okay, so raise your hands if you've fed your personas in the last 3 months. So have you put data into them or upgraded them or refreshed them at all? You have. So one person of the people, okay, great. So one person of the 4/5 of people who do have personas have done that. That's cool. And raise your hands if you've actually validated or checked the validity of your personas against your, some users or some data that you've got recently. So not necessarily added stuff, but actually check whether they're true or not. Last month, yeah, okay. So a few guys there. That's great. But it feels like there are potential hauntings going on here. Definitely, you may, without knowing it, have that problem. So, so what is it? Okay. So the way I looked at it was the worst case scenario is that you made your personas at the beginning of the project, discarded them on a file system. You haven't fed them. You haven't tended them or updated them. They're unproven, unfulfilled, unfed, and eventually undead. So you know, clearly that it seems like people, perhaps here and definitely on experiences I've had, they're receiving a distinct lack of attention. When I go to particularly XP meetings for some reason, meetups, people are saying, "Oh, I tried personas, they're rubbish, they don't work, they failed for us," and all that kind of thing. And I think it always seems to boil down to the kind of things we're going to talk about today. And particularly giving them a little bit of attention. Luckily, I put together a kit for you today that we're going to implement and use. I might even bring it out at some point, but on Etsy or something. Watch this space. But seriously, I think it starts somewhat counterintuitively in some cases, but I think a lot of the time it's boiled down to possibly misinterpretations of how things should be done or how things are used. So I'm not putting this at the door of any kind of lean approaches, but I think we've perhaps all had conversations or spoken to people who think lean is faster and cheaper. It's just doing something without the research, and you get stuff for free. It's just testing your assumptions, and it's a worrying. You know, the people I spoke to, a worrying sort of sizable chunk of people have taken that to mean that these kind of research and those kind of associated activities are no longer necessary. Sad face. Okay. Again, when lean startup was being used in projects and so on. Obviously, the UX guys were looking at this and going, how are we going to cope with this? How should we work together with it? And Josh Seedon, that's his name, and Jeff Gottelf very kindly bonded a few really useful techniques into a book called Lean UX. It's been around for quite a while now, but I think there have been a fair amount of misinterpretation. Both those books were hatched in environments where there was an implicit understanding of user experience or that it's important, and quite often, particularly perhaps in more complex software development circles or companies, that isn't the case. And certainly some of these lean techniques need a bit of stretching to apply. But certainly when they get misinterpreted, go faster and cheaper. No documentation is needed. That's not what really the spirit of lean and lean UX and what the guys were talking about in these books. When I hear that, I translate that to mean we don't need research to just learn about users. People are making these proto-personas, as I mentioned in this book, very, very quickly, far too fast, and without this kind of background of research or kind of data. I think you've all mentioned research is important, so you get it, I know. But we'll go into that a bit more. The other case, which I've experienced for donkey's years, is the classic making them up. So I speak to people even now, and they say things like, "Oh, I know my customers." It's almost like an affront to say you should go and research personas. And they'll say, "Oh, what? I know my customers. I don't, they fit certain people who've worked in companies for a long time, perhaps feel like they engender their customers' needs. That's particularly true in publishing. People I've come across, editors, editorial staff. I love them, but some of them, some people, they perhaps don't appreciate some of these slightly different techniques we're bringing in or something. But certainly, I think quite a few of us will have heard people saying, "I know what they want. Don't you think I have the customer's best interests at heart?" It's almost like it's quite an emotive statement, isn't it? But to me, that just says, let's make them up. Not cool. So that's quite intangible and perhaps some of the symptoms, but let's look at perhaps more something a little bit more noticeable. So that is what I'm talking about. Okay, things like this. Has anyone seen this kind of thing? Like someone making a persona that looks like this? Okay. So a team gets together at the beginning of a project or at some point and says, "Okay, well, we've got this user. He's probably male. He's probably 35. Let's call him Bob. Draw a pretty smiley face. He likes swimming. Does swimming obviously. He likes haggis, so he likes eating, and likes fishing. So he also likes sitting by bodies of water. So, but that, I mean." Even something, this one's a little bit better perhaps, but if you're just making this stuff up, you're just making this stuff up, essentially, that's where I'm coming from with this whole ghost concept, is that, there's no supporting evidence, there's no data, they're intangible, and essentially ghostly, there's nothing to them. So a wise man I met in California once said, you can make software for imaginary people, but all you get is imaginary money, and you can't spend that. It's, by which he meant you can, it's going to take you in the wrong direction, and the product you make is not for the real people, actual people that you'll come across and buy your product. Okay, we seem to have lost the sound. Sorry, Buffy. No, she's quiet. There was a dun dun dun. I'll do it for you there. A moment. But anyway, she's going to write to me afterwards and complain. It was in her contract. So there's more. I think you can extrapolate from that the concept of ghost personas. I think there are zombie personas as well, where. Quite a lot of time I'll rock up at a company and have asked them to come and perhaps facilitate or something or do some work for them, and they'll say they'll have personas on the wall and say, "Look, proudly, we've got personas," and they've got dust on them. There's a little kind of ridge of kind of perhaps some spider webs hanging off the side, tumbleweeds blowing by underneath. They haven't been fed recently. They haven't been updated or refreshed. They were made two years ago by a design agency that they commissioned, and they haven't. The market has moved on. Things change a lot more quickly than they used to now. And essentially, what you got there is the living dead on the wall. So they're zombies. Possibly you've got some of those. Okay. Next up, seemed like there's also vampire personas that afraid of the light of reason, the light of day, draining time, life force away, wasting time and money, and even team motivation, taking your project in the wrong direction. I went to a company once in Melbourne actually, and they were proudly saying how they sourced their decisions based on user feedback, and the feedback they were using, the only source of data was customer service reports and customer service feedback. Now, it was a helpline, and people were phoning up to complain on this helpline. I think you know where I'm going with this. It's essentially they're kind of self-selected, or certainly these are people only with problems, and they were basing their product design decisions on the data that they got from this, which you can see how that's going to skew your product. It's got they're only phoning up when they've got a problem. They're not perhaps assessing the underlying cause. They're not looking at what people need. They're looking at fixing what was wrong or bad in these people's in people's experiences. So you've got to have that sort of the flip side of that. So multiple sources of information is very useful. Okay, and finally, Frankensteinian personas. I had to get the complete set. I have come across people whose personas aren't very believable. They're like a hodgepodge, or maybe they got some data on one file server. They got some information or intelligence in the kind of BA teams heads. They got so basically the data about is very disparate, and it isn't kind of melded together or kind of even believable when it is. Perhaps it's just kind of a list of things or. So it's very important to have things that are convincing and authentic personas. Okay, but wait, okay, it's not all doom and gloom. You don't need to look up an exorcist just yet. I think I've got some solutions. Okay, so how am I doing for time? 11. Okay, cool, good. So we've spoken about this already, but there's lots of sources of data around us, and the quantitative, one of our attendees today said she thinks there should be both qualitative and quantitative. That's great. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It might, if you don't do this already, it might be right in front of you. Perhaps the marketing team have a login to Google Analytics on the system which they use for other purposes like AdWords, whereas all the data you need might be there and beautifully graphed. You might have clues in logs and that kind of thing, and checking up on that kind of stuff. Some kind of data analysis on performance and dwell times. On the flip side, talking about multiple sources of information, really, really useful. But I can't underline or kind of exaggerate how important and convincing and almost, it's really, really key that you actually kind of meet people and get out there and talk to people. So if you're perhaps going to conferences where the kind of your users hang out, perhaps accompanying sales guys to, if your company's doing a demo or they've got a booth at a conference, if you make products for dogs, and people do. I met a lady the other day who does UX for dogs. Who knew? It's very cool. Talk to them or in some way communicate. Understand their needs it's personas, anything. None of this kind of really beats that one-to-one thing, and you can't always do that. But you can't always speak to every single user. It's just impractical. That's why one of the reasons why we have personas. But certainly that single face-to-face experience is something else. Okay. Yeah, so kind of discussed it a bit already, but so that sound source of data, watching out for that sort of skew, like the guys did with in Melbourne with their customer service feedback. We then went out and spoke to people at where the product was being used the most, and we got this kind of offset, so we were able to identify what was useful. It's not to say that customer service feedback isn't useful. It is. It's just you can get a skew, a wrong direction, a wrong steer, bum steer, and yeah, so we're going to come on to how we can meld personas a bit better in practice, so I won't go on about that too much. Okay, so where do we start? Right. So I think to some people, user experience can be a bit of a weird science, but, and I think it's the best way to look at it, to be honest. Has anyone seen this film?
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Nuts, 80s film. It's a perfect example of that era of movies. And and it's something you need to embrace. Oh, it's having slide fails all over the shop. Missing images. Oh well. It's, yeah, you have to embrace a little bit of that kind of, I think sometimes psychology and applied psychology that we use in user experience can be a little bit, feel a little bit like that. Certainly I know a few of the team that I work with at the moment are slightly, they're most unused to the qualitative side of research and much more used to kind of looking at understanding things on a, through data or that kind of thing. And it won't be uncommon in software development, right? So, right, so let's start exercising our research skills and shut me up for a minute. Let's actually do something. Right, so my fellow Agile on the Beach person in the corner will be very pleased to hear that we're going to help her next year by creating personas for Agile on the Beach 2017. And so what I want you to do is to imagine yourself into the shoes of the people who would be visiting the Agile on the Beach 2017 site. Funnily enough, you might be wearing those shoes, so that's good. But treat the conference so far like your UX research. So you've been talking to people, hopefully you've met some people, particularly last night, milled around, mingled, observed, spoken about what people are interested in and not interested in, and breathe life into the kind of the personas for Agile on the Beach, and make next year's website really awesome. Okay, how are we going to do that? Come on, thank you. Right, so just a quick 10-minute thing. So what I want to do is keep in mind the people you've met this week, write down on Post-its single bits of information. These are known as persona traits or attributes you have observed from people you've seen and met this week. So that could be demographic, psychographic, technical, geographical, and check out the posters behind you there and on the wall here. They've got a list of kind of prompts that might help you kind of fill out. So if you went through all of those and had like a post-it for each, that would be amazing. You'd have a pretty good rounded experience, kind of rounded list. But so it's one attribute of a person that you've observed, actually observed in the last days at this conference on per post-it. So you might say, I want to post-it has a MacBook, for instance. That's definitely one. You might write, what's another one? Location, maybe you found out where they're from. You might say, their experience with technology. I wonder how experienced they are with the technology. Probably quite experienced, but this is what I'm talking about. So, okay, so what we're trying to do is cover the whole desk with as many of these attributes as you can in 10 minutes, okay? Go. If you get stuck, just look at the guy opposite and just write down what you think or ask them. Cool. Sorry. Try and fix this audio problem. Yeah, it didn't seem to work for the. It's working on the video. So that's that. Let's try. Let's flip back to the PowerPoint. Okay. And there's been some sound effects that didn't come up. Let's try again on one of these. So. Yeah, there was a dun-dun-dun on Buffy. Okay, so that works all right. That's strange.
Maybe it's when it's full screen mode.
Yeah, we're up on the screen now. Yeah, definitely. Yay! Okay, cool. So that works. For some reason, I just lost the focus. Probably something to do with it.
I mean, it might be just the fact that, I mean, when you go through it, you tried it like that. Does that make sense?
Tried it like what?
So when the time starts elapsing, it might do that.
Yeah, well, it would work just then. So I'm quite. I'm happy. I'm happy. I think I'm all right. Thank you. There we go. Right. Awesome. Hello, hi.
I didn't mind, but I was kind of going to see this one in a minute.
I won't, not at all, no.
Sorry,
no, you don't have to apologise. I strongly believe in the in inability to choose, and I'm always looking at conferences. I'm thinking, oh no, I learn this, whatever. Yeah, cool. We've got some, look at the slides, because they should be pretty self-explanatory once you go off and once they're up on slideshow or something, and obviously the video will be there, but yeah, there's a few neat techniques that you could really help if you're interested at the end. Yeah.
I'll look at the slides.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, enjoy. See you later, maybe. Let me. I'm going to dive in. Is it what?
It's the Silicon Beach as opposed to the Silicon Beach.
It must be, yeah, I love it.
So we've got three people. Number one is the non-technical.
Okay, so what we can do, what I really need to do is to forget about trying to meld them together at the moment or come up with them immediately. Just write down the single attributes on per post-it. Okay, this is really key to do it that way. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's useful. Yeah. So if we do so something like I would say, I'm sorry, but this is true. A lot of people here are of male gender. That's it. That's one attribute. Okay, as an example. Another might be environment. So lives in Cornwall. Lots of people, quite a few people do. That's a good one. So that's a location. Quite useful. So you see where I'm going. Just we want to get as many of these as possible, and it will come clear why in a bit. We're going to move them around. Maybe. Perfect. No, that's what I mean. This is exactly the reason why I've done it this way. Because so you can, it's easier to sort of understand and literally pick each other's brains, literally. Actual age. Yeah. Pick one. Again. Oh, okay. Uses goals. Well, that's functional requirements, emotion, what do they feel? Inspired, hopefully.
Laptop age 9 years. 9 laptop.
Cool. So I'm gonna. You guys are shooting off. So I'm gonna go help these guys. Oh, you're all over it. It's like brilliant. You've got millions. Fantastic. How you doing, guys? Awesome. Brilliant. Oh no! Oh my leg! Oh. No, that's fine. Okay, so maybe one on each, perhaps. One on each. Perhaps if you put a kind of the useful thing is to break it out. We're trying to have as many single things on a post-it. So if you have from the UK, from Cornwall, from USA as a separate ones each, and it will all become clear afterwards. It sounds counterintuitive, but it works. This is the way it works. Okay. All right. Excellent. Flying out.
Because that's quite a different conference experience, that's body of knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, see, already we might have two personas splitting out. So it's okay to have conflicting, or they might be complementary. We'll think about that later.
What do you think would really make one?
I really want customers. I really want customers. But if you say I want customers, all your customers run away. Yeah, you have to pretend you want to meet people and be nice.
Yes.
Cynical. No.
This is
Lifestyle.
one is learn,
Values. What do you like to see?
and another one is
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've done everything. Every agile program I've worked on for success. Every one I've worked on for 2 years has been a failure.
Doesn't like waterfall. That's interesting.
Stolen films.
See, yeah. See, this is exactly the kind of thing that's interesting. So, like, when you come across, sometimes this kind of thing will bring out the fact that you don't need a UI. Maybe you need just to sort of file share a completely anarchic Agile on the Beach video. The outtakes from the party or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that. So, which may get shared, which may get downloaded also. Torrents.
Downloads torrents.
Wow.
I training courses for OAP.
Wow. What do you do?
Sailing instructor.
What's the word that means? Is that altruistic? Yeah, nice.
But again, altruistic is one of those things that you do whilst you're pretending to get nothing back from it.
Yeah.
Like being nice.
It's just a kind of a thing that sums up a bunch of stuff, and I think it helps communicate. So,
OAP has training courses. Raising money for charity.
I think most of the people I've met are quite experienced in what they do so far. I don't think I've met some real who's completely new or just left university.
No, most of them are propeller heads, I have to say. We had some in-depth conversations about the difference between weakly typed and strongly typed programming languages on the beach last night.
My favourite conversation. Doing it, I'm trolling my Java friends.
We just talking about machine learning and AI and super intelligent artificial robots taking over the world, and you just think, well, okay, you could just be paranoid from watching TV, but actually you've downloaded the development kit and you've seen how easy it is to implement machine learning and interrogate massive data sets. And it's like, wow, this is cool stuff that suddenly the guy did for me is like interesting.
Yeah. Aware of current events or something, or current what's And there's a horrible word, zeitgeist, which sounds very pretentious, but it's kind of that,
Everybody that I speak to, you could be again self-selecting, but are people who have read all of the IT news, all of it. So you talk about some article that was in the news 3 months ago, and they know what you're talking about, like random stuff. So they spend a lot of time reading the tech news. That's what I'd say. Read tech news.
really switched on, really, reads and digests. How many time? Oh, that's 10 minutes. Let's give it another 5, I think, maybe. I do. You got anything? Say what? Yeah, please do. Yeah, definitely. I'll probably give it a couple of minutes, and it's a really good cadence. I think to it. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, guys. Some of the guys are going to pop out for a 5-minute coffee break. So if you want to grab one, please do. If you want to come in and join us, please do as well. It's fine if you haven't come in before. You work here, don't you? I just realised. Yeah, you can join in too if you want. So, do you work in tech or anything? It's a way of understanding your customers better, so you can make software for them. It's usability. It's about ergonomics of designing stuff. So, I'm sure you've got tons of horror stories about how this stuff doesn't work and the way you expect it to, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is one way of making that better. Totally.
Yeah.
So we're
stop
yeah.
Stop.
She might disagree. I don't know. Cool.
With the headphones on there, I would put why do we need to the session's finished?
It's good for research. It's slightly scary. I don't know. I'm not sure if it'll ruin it or not. No. Is it good, really? Seriously? Okay, look. All right.
I wouldn't put them on there.
Yeah. Oh, good.
What happens is they'll slowly weigh the camera down.
They did what? No way. Okay, right. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah. As it is. Yeah. Actually, I did. On doing research for this, I did see a few clips, and I was thinking, actually, the trailers are shit. You shouldn't. I mean, the trailers are really embarrassing. They're like for they make it sound like a crap film. It might be fall onto my laptop by mistake overnight. It happens sometimes. I don't know why. Yeah. Cool. Okay, right, I'm going to grab coffee, or certainly just make sure everyone knows that they can.
And then it said file recovered, so I just pressed it again.
Awesome. I'll give you a couple of quid. Can you grab me an espresso? If I give this a couple of quid, it's probably about that. Let me know if it's less or more. Cheers.
Yeah, no, I've literally been here the whole time. Like, if you see what I mean, I mean, like, that's why I managed to obviously pass report. So 2 files.
Not this one. I'm using my bag. Cool. So I've got, how much have you got? You've got a bunch. How do you do make the same as normally? Yeah.
I actually came up with something.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a really nice thing. I see people starting to redevelop much richer ideas, like making really big posters with the user genders in Happy Park. We found out we figured out quite a lot of stuff about people. So how did you find it? Starting with you guys. So no doubt you've done this before, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, I was struggling because there's quite a lot of ranges of lots of things. Like,
Yeah, when I was totally. When I was thinking about this, about the workshop, I initially thought, oh, maybe there's going to be maybe 3 personas, but then I realised when I got here, I'd forgotten how cross-functional the conference is. So I would say you wouldn't ever go more than 7, but we might get easily up to 5 or 5 when you really start thinking about it. So persona workshops often last a whole morning. If not, I've seen for really big companies, even like days, a couple of days of this kind of activity. So you might do these all morning. And imagine if you've got this on a wall, you've got 10 people from different places, from parts of the company, that kind of thing. It can take quite a lot of time, and that's good. That's the way it should be, because it's really fundamental to user experience. Okay, yeah, you've got absolutely gazillions on here. That's awesome. That's going to be great in the next stage. How did you guys find it? Pretty easy.
As we got going, more ideas came. I think it's like after you get the first 3, it seemed like more things come back to you of how people were, what they were wearing, their background, things like that.
What they were saying in conversations.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Maybe on longer sessions, in kind of real persona workshops, you'll often start with perhaps seed personas or bring in the research that you've already done. As a user practitioner, I might put down, introduce some of the stuff we've done so far before we start. So that maybe there's a shortfall there, and mustn't forget to do that in future. Cool.
It does feel a little bit like drowning in detail.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's what we need. It's all about getting that down. And when you've got people from customer service, from sales, who've had sort of primary contacts with users, it's all these different perspectives are really rich, and that the more you can get, the better at this stage. Totally. And these are quite small tables, but with good sticky post-its that don't blow away when you sneeze on a proper board. Then you get so it's no castigation of these, but super sticky post-its. So if you come across these, you can actually buy them. They've got it written on the back. Why they aren't all super sticky, I don't know, but those are the ones to get. Okay, in case you didn't know that.
On users, one of the challenges we've got is our customers aren't our users.
Classic, yeah.
So we sell a website solution to somebody that then they obviously use with their customers.
Yeah.
So getting to those people that are using is very difficult.
Yeah.
And actually who we're selling to is not the people that will be using.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting point, and where quite often I'm really conscious of differentiating design personas, design in the widest sense, and marketing profiles, even business analysis actors. Certainly marketing profiling is quite different. It's sometimes aspirational, and it's about, say if you're Microsoft, perhaps you're talking to the guy who signs the check to buy Microsoft Office for the whole enterprise, whereas obviously the guys who are designing Microsoft Office are looking at, people writing documents, and that, so it's a classic problem. Sometimes what I do in that sort of situation is once if I can find out what those people are like, actually define them better, and maybe that's your problem, but go to if I can't actually meet those users, go to places where I will find them, or find people like them, if not exactly those people. But that's a whole body of technique right there, I think. I can send you some links or something. I'll talk about later. Cool. Okay, so I don't want to run out of time. So there is some really cool stuff to go next. So I'll kind of race on. Okay, so this is a classic example of some personas we did in the last 3 years. In the company I work for at the moment is it's got 200 people and they're spread all around the globe. So whenever I was travelling or whenever people were coming in, I would grab their download their brains by running a session. So they're cross-functional. So the idea is to get the people who have that knowledge, who have met users, who do know who they are, like you did today. You met and yesterday you met all the people who you're profiling here or kind of writing about here, and then also in the same workshop include the people who need to know this. So again, it's going back to what we were talking about as this gentleman here was talking about the audience for personas. So in this case, that's the tech lead of the project. That's the product manager for the project, and they need to know this stuff. So that's kind of they're participating in the process. Okay. So various different sessions and angles on that, and lots more post-its. One really key thing is sometimes I'll hold a separate stakeholder session, or if you've got C-levels, CEOs, CTOs, that kind of thing, who do have contact with users or need to put their brain dump their knowledge into the personas, which is often quite good, particularly if you're in a startup. I will have it in a separate session because it happens. They kind of seem to have this sort of reality warping effect wherever they go, senior execs, and sometimes you'll find people's responses are different when they're there and when they're not. And I'm not going to speculate why or whatever, but it's just human nature, and so therefore sometimes a few sessions are quite useful. But it's really important that they buy into that because certainly sponsors or stakeholders are people who need to understand why where the data is coming from and how it was made, so they can then appreciate that you're saying, well, actually no, your instincts perhaps aren't correct. We did this persona session and Bob or Jane or whoever would never do that. That's just kind of what you want. And it's a difficult conversation to have, but if you base it and engage, and if they've been put into the process, then it's an invaluable situation, kind of context to set up. Okay, so the next stage, and it's really important that we did this stage first, but the next stage is to group these. So here's an example I've got here. This is a great big board. There's a whole big list of them here. There's different persona groups. Even it's a bit ragged in places because I'm not sure, or certainly at this stage, I wasn't sure how the personas were going to fit together. So here's one I ran for the same product, but in a different with a different group of people. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups eventually. And that's what I want you to do next. So first of all, it's something called affinity grouping, which I think we're familiar with perhaps from retrospectives, or we're kind of adept at post-its, aren't we, in the Agile world. So what I want you to do is to kind of we're not trying to create real people here exactly, although they need to be authentic. It's more about grouping together believable people. So it's if you take these various different things and kind of meld them into one, and if or 2 or 3 or 4, and if they don't seem to fit together, then great. If they don't seem too different, then perhaps it's worth melding them together, because the fewer you have, the easier life sometimes is. So obviously, we really don't want more than 7 personas, but certainly I think the median is 5. 3 is also a good number. Some people, the trend nowadays is to have fewer, but sometimes it's not realistic. So what we're going to do next is look at the attributes we've collected, and as a whole team, bless you, group them together like a believable person. So work your way across from one side to the other of your boards or tables, looking for affinity between the post-its, and create new groups that fit together in a natural way. So it's not more than 7, but 2 to 5 is great. Don't try too hard to find groupings, because they're met where they don't exist. Just see what there is right in front of you. That's all you need to do. And then perhaps at the end, we should end up with maybe 5 groups of people. Even better, name them. If a name seems to characterise those people, it's very important you choose the right name. In this case, it is important, particularly. Generational naming is generational. It's it can be to do with culture and all sorts, obviously. So the name is really key. And just flipping back, if you get ahead of yourself, or certainly if once you've got that down, I've got some sets of templates here, which a kind company, quite a few people do these, but I've got 3 so you can mess them up if you want to, or create more if you need them. I've got some big A3 ones as well to kind of put finals on, but these are really useful to gather those together once you think you've got a group, but don't jump the gun. But once you have got those groups together, you can start filling in their backstory and that kind of thing. And when I'll come and talk to you, depending on how far you get. So anyway, start trying to find groups and meanings within these the post-its. We'll have about 10 minutes for that and see how we go. So don't, I mean, you were using primary evidence to base it on, but take it away, pretend you don't know that person, and then start thinking about how it fits together. So how, I've chucked some in here as well, that maybe repeated ones, but I don't think maybe you didn't have relaxed and inspired, want to learn, sometimes feel pressurised to deliver, don't like waterfall. So maybe those are extras. Torrents, experienced, but there may be two people here. Not you've got to split personality, but you'd be surprised, I think, if you think more widely. Cool. Okay, I'll leave you to it. Stop talking. But it's I mean, it can be frustrating if you're trying to squeeze that into some time. But hopefully this is enough of a taster to get the idea about how you might go about this. Okay, feel free to continue going on, but I'm going to crack on and just show you ways, the next stage. So there's that one. So really quickly, in one sentence, what did you find? Where did you get to?
We basically based it on me, but then we thought there might actually be two people inside my personality. One guy who is some kind of youngish charity worker who's looking to, who's in a stilted business and he's under pressure to do more, and he's looking to understand Agile and how they can do more with the same amount of funding.
Yeah. And
there's another guy who is a startup founder who is about networking, meeting people, understanding the community. He's a bit more slick, a bit more polished, and older. Yeah. Okay, great. So that's a really good example of how these as you work through them, the stuff evolves, and you find kind of users growing out of the affinity grouping process, which is really good. How did you find it, guys? Where did you get to?
Yeah, I think it was difficult. I think we maybe based it on roles like Scrum Masters, developers, POs, PMs, divided them up a bit. We have a big UX person here who drinks lots of coffee and dresses smart, and is probably from London. And then we have developers who like to drink beer and casual clothes.
You'll know it revolves around wine, beer, or whatever, and it generally very merry. So don't forget to include them. Yeah.
Is there wine as we see?
Oh, maybe. All right.
One of the things I found hard was to take experiences from day to day out of the equation, because I was thinking grumpy old developer that doesn't want to learn type thing.
Yeah.
But they're not here. They're back in the office. And so it's kind of saying, well, the people aren't here, aren't the grumpy, stuck in the ways developer. They want to expand, they want to share. And
so maybe some like say that what would a bit more research about what these people. Yeah, so maybe going out and actually talking to those people out there, and rather than just sort of basing it off stuff would be absolutely the best way to go. Cool, guys. In one sentence, how did you do? How did you find it?
Good.
Yeah, listen. Okay, cool. Woo. That's great. You've got really good rows, groups. You've got pictures of people. That's great.
Is it that kind of role as well?
I think it's mainly the bigger job title of manager, developer, UI, UX, public speaker. I forget what that one was.
Salesperson.
So you've got speakers in there as well, which is interesting. Yeah. Because without something to come on and listen to, and it's all part and parcel, isn't it? Cool. And I spoke to you guys. Hopefully, I know you grouped it by users as well. But did you get to? How did you find it? I guess.
Good. We struggled because some of the characteristics that we came up with kind of applied across everyone. So how do we choose where to put them? And that made us think, are those characteristics actually random if they apply to everyone? We won't make decisions on that.
I would I think I would tend to put them in to kind of give it a bit more context and colour, to actually know. if there's one user, one persona who's outside of that, then you want to know that all the others are where they are as well. So I'll talk about comparing different personas together in a sec. But yeah, it's really important to remember these are hypotheses, and you don't have to settle on it. They won't hold you to it. The idea is to test them and develop them. Cool. All right, I've got a couple of things I want to show you to really keep the personas alive. So I'm going to race on. Okay, cool. So here are some examples, if you haven't seen them before, of rich personas, and you can kind of compare the difference. So depending on what you need, sometimes you'll have, some people put little information design or radiators in them. So if you've got sort of 3 personas in a row, you could maybe compare how they relate on the same metrics or the same attributes. It's one quite interesting way of looking at it is what people would say. So this is obviously about this one includes typical things this user would say, and a very classic one here with sort of the it listed out. This is really interesting. I quite like including is a kind of a strap line, if you like, what they would say commonly, and a personal statement of some sort, which is written in their own vocabulary. So if when you've spoken to users and you're observing them, finding out how they talk, what kind of words they use, what domain-specific words they might use that are specific to the expertise that they have, for instance. So I'm working in publishing, and publishers have a certain way of talking about things. They talk about monetization and placements and design, how they talk about design of pages and content and things. All really good stuff. Oh, here's another one with kind of sliders that would be good if you had like 3 in a row. You could see how they compared. Okay. So we spoke about various different pitfalls or sicknesses personas can get. Got our ghosts, zombies, other monsters, and each one of those kind of has a solution, I think. Our ghostly, insubstantial personas need more data. Perhaps the zombies, you need to feed them with and test them, and I keep them alive with constantly giving them more information over time. Make sure you kind of refine them properly. So this process, the guys over here are finding it kind of quite hard work thinking through, and that's good. That's the way it should be to develop good, rounded personas. It's not just sort of this sort of snappy kind of quick thing. It's what you put in, you get out of it. And make sure you watch out for skew in your data. So make sure you've got lots of different sources of that. Okay. So once you've brought them back to life, part of the problem is keeping them alive. And that's where, obviously you can see why some of them go wrong and they just get left up on the wall. So first of all, you do need to engage them. So put them somewhere in people's way, where you might have them, where they see them and so on. But make sure you can update them. So this one here has one of those that I made, had one of those little graphics to compare, but at the same time, I started leaving out a gap so I could actually easily change them. So, stick on post-its if we discover something about that user. Wasn't my idea, it was actually someone I was in a workshop with who just came up with the thing. The next thing is I found is, I don't know if you do this already, but it's quite surprising when I find people don't. A lot of people say things like, in a user story, say things like, as a developer or as a UX person or as a customer. This is quite generic, and one really, really easy way of doing of making that story more put value or kind of more richness into these user stories, to actually say as Charlotte here, our brand manager, I would like to say that I have, and so on. So it's really simple, but it really does work. It's surprising. A couple of things I've tried recently have been, I think most people have heard of moo.com, and they make these little kind of stickers that are about that big, and they fit quite nicely in the bottom right corner of cards that we put on our, that we all, quite a few of us use on boards or post-its. So in that way, you're linking the persona, the picture that you've got on your persona, directly with the card. You can't take it off. You know who that story is for just by looking at it. And equally, I found these were quite good, but even better were these magnetic little stickers you can get. We have magnetic boards at all around the office where I am, and using them to, instead of using a magnet, using the actual persona, this kind of magnetic persona to hold on stories that are associated with the user experience or UI stories really helps. And they are literally holding the story to the board, and that's they're integral to the story. So it has a sort of quite significant effect on how you the kind of interpretation of the end result. So equally, just having these kind of bland templates is okay, but clues in the way I'm describing them. Making your own is really key, I think. I found when I'm involving teams and doing it, that not only do they want to organise their team themselves, but I think there's a real truth in doing it properly and doing it in the way that your team will resonate with. So remember, it's the audience that matters. So I've always wanted to do a character sheet persona. It hasn't really resonated so far with people, but one day I'm going to find a team who do like them. You might find a Pokemon one, although it's kind of a bit last month. Might be the right thing. But one thing I'm going to do, and I'm definitely probably when I get back in the next few weeks, is make a massive cutout version of it. So I don't know if you've seen these. They're like life-size cutouts of characters. And what I'm going to do is have kind of attributes throughout, all over their body. And I was joking earlier, but I might actually do it if a user-centric story gets deprioritised. I'm going to ask for the person who made the decision to go and apologise to the cardboard cutout, and see if they can, and see if they keep on doing that. But I'm not sure. That might be a bit cruel, or perhaps negative. But it's certainly ways of getting getting these personas and keeping them alive, literally. And you can get cardboard cutouts about that big and not too expensive. I had a quote for one this size for I think it was about £32. So if you just make your primary persona or your primary and secondary, the most important ones, have them just scattered around the room, overlooking. I don't know if it's going to be creepy or not. We'll find out. I'll let you know. But again, like we were saying, all of these are hypotheses. Just like I think Adrian was saying yesterday about iterating. The truth of this is out there, not in within your team and in the office. So whenever you're doing user testing, perhaps take a moment to look back and say, okay, well, we got I met this user at a conference and did some impromptu guerrilla testing. Did he suit this user? Actually, no, he's not like this. He validated some of these attributes, but actually other things are not true. We found out they didn't fit our idea. So let's change it.
And to validate things, are you looking at your Google Analytics, or are you following up with individual customers?
All the
saying,
sources, yeah.
Actually, how old is your laptop? And
Yeah, all the sources, yeah, definitely. Again, yeah. I mean, I regularly check Google Analytics. You can set up a dashboard and then have it emailed to you on a kind of schedule that you choose. It's quite useful, I think. Right, so you don't have to go off and check every time, but it gives you a little nudge to say in an email, and you can look at the metrics and say, well, actually, this user isn't coming to the website as much as I thought. Let's kind of move that slider on the persona or something. Yeah, definitely. All the sources. It's that kind of keeping be aware. And if you don't have time to, perhaps that's the or you don't want to, or perhaps the user experience guy in your team or the person who's doing that kind of stuff can do that as well instead. Okay. And yeah, like I say, never stop refining. Find whatever suits your team is what counts. What keeps it alive for your own team. What keeps it alive for the people that you're working with for that given situation. So I've made these kind of I'm going to make these cutout personas next month, but that really wouldn't work in some contexts. Some perhaps more corporate environments would prefer these slightly nicer ones on the wall because they have a kind of a clean wall policy or something. So perhaps slightly more classically designed posters would work better or something like that. So this offensively yellow thing is a certificate for ghost hunting, and I just want to say I think that you guys have you could now go away and say, once this is online, you can print this out and put it on your wall and say you're official ghost hunters now. But I did want to have a quick award ceremony and look at the best persona observation, which I think should go to I have to think about that one. I'll go on to the next one first. I think most realistic persona, I think, is the ones that have evolved naturally, that you haven't tried to kind of sort of put together too unnaturally. They're things that really just seem to fit and be more convincing. So probably things like, including the speakers over there, that's probably the best. Actually, I think that's probably the best observation, because it's not looking at just what you think perhaps you might have seen, but also including the wider picture, which is awesome. And going back to the most realistic persona, unfortunately we didn't get as far as doing the whole ones, but this is pretty complete, I have to say. Yeah, I'm afraid this award has to go to these guys. It might have been that they were more modest in their approach and they only had 2 personas, so they could get further ahead. But yeah, this one here is good and complete. There you go. Yeah, awesome. But really, I think you've all done really well, and I think struggled with a few things, and that's good. That's the way you learn. We kind of pick up things and figure stuff out. And if there's, if you have, high five with the black cat. Thanks for coming along. I had to show you this last one. This is absolutely. I warned you there would be cats, but I don't care how they did this. It's brilliant. It's just so weird. I have cats at home, and I'm so glad they don't float around. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. I have to quote these guys. Firstly, Alan Cooper, who originally coined the term design personas, or the concepts, and using them with software and that kind of thing. Although they kind of go right back to the 60s. The technique I'm talking about here, persona workshops, is defined really, really well by Mike Kuniavsky, can't spell, in Observing the User Experience. Great book about observing the user experience. Again, a really great book came out a few years back called The Persona Life Cycle, and of course the Lean UX by Jeff and Josh. A great introduction to that kind of approach if you haven't done it before. Massive credit to these guys for making all the gifs that I nicked and disturbing one of our. I'm sorry about all the flat weird images, and I hope it didn't make it too.
Second half was better.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Any questions? No. So that must mean either it was so good, or really bad. Anyway. If not, I think we're running a bit behind, so I'm just going to zip on and say thank you very much. Cheers. You did a great job. Cheers. Thank you. Cheers.